Hey friends, it's Mike and it's Tuesday, November 10th. This is a follow-up to yesterday's Humpty Dumpty video. There were a couple of good questions asked in the comment section that I wanted to respond to. A couple of folks asked if I believe there was any chance that Trump could overturn the elections via the legal system. My answer is anything is possible, but we have to think in terms of whether it is probable. I stated in my video that the same people who control the election and the presidency are the same people that control the legal system. I know there are a lot of people that don't want to hear this. They want to have their hopium. But the hard truth is, the world is controlled. And the proof is all around us. Look at how the CV PSYOP is being played. It's the same script across the world, with internationalists like Fauci and Gates being the messengers, and international organizations like the WHO and the World Economic Forum taking center stage to push the agenda. In the case of the World Economic Forum, they're actually taking the step of showing us what's on the horizon. They're not hiding anymore. The agenda is out in the open for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Let's say Trump pursues legal action to seek remedy in court. The first problem is the math. What the controllers did was to push Biden to 290 electoral votes as of today, which is November 10th, which positions him 20 electoral votes above the 270 needed to win the election. So they're making sure he has buffer. And Trump is currently sitting at 214, and he's going to need 56 electoral votes to be declared the winner. We are told 3 states are still not declared, and they are Alaska with 3 electoral votes, which will go to Trump, North Carolina with its 15 and will most likely go to Trump as well, and last is Georgia with its 16 votes, where Biden is leading, so we are told, by a small margin. My guess is they will push Georgia into Biden's court. So Biden currently has 290 electoral votes, and if he wins Georgia, that puts him at 306. And if Trump wins Alaska and North Carolina, his count will increase to 232. Biden at 306 would need to lose more than 36 electoral votes, and Trump needs to gain at least 38. The states where Trump will or has filed lawsuits are Michigan with 16 electoral votes, Georgia with 16, Pennsylvania with 20, and Nevada with 6, for a total of 58 votes. Hypothetically, if the courts order an investigation and recount, and Trump wins these 4 states, that will put him at 290 and drops Biden down to 248, and Trump wins the election. It looks straightforward on paper, but the problem I see is Trump needs to show hard evidence of fraud and tampering. And even if his legal team is able to do that, the evidence is most likely going to point to particular areas or precincts, which means a recount will only be done for that specific voting area. I don't see how the courts would declare a statewide recount. So unless the precincts in question have enough votes to flip the election, it's not going to put Trump over the goal line. And let's say for argument's sake, the recount for a targeted area does flip the state over to Trump, then the Biden camp will go to court and it becomes more of a flustercluck than it already is. So this is how I'm seeing the legal angle. Like I said, anything is possible, but we have to ask ourselves, is it probable? I don't think the courts overturning the election falls into the probable category, but that's me. Another scenario I believe that was considered by the controllers was Trump winning and then followed by scripted violence across the country by rolling out their Bolshevik useful idiots to loot and burn down major cities across the nation as the governors, mayors, and the police of these cities are told to stand down. This was probably a tactic they were considering but opted not to go with because there was a higher degree of risk if the people of these areas and across the country decided to take matters into their own hands and bring street justice, meaning we shoot back. So I think their options were 1. Go with Trump winning and then manage the unpredictability of what might ensue as far as civil unrest, which in all likelihood would result in a mess, not just for us, but for the controllers as well. Or 2. Flip the switch for Biden and give the impression of a civil and controlled transition and deal with the minor unrest from the Trump side of the equation. I say minor because they know most people who lean conservative in the political puppet show are not going to burn shit down. So they went with option 2, which moves their agenda forward, and they don't have to deal with the unpredictability of civil unrest. The way I look at it, even though the controllers would ensure either scenario would benefit them, option 2 with a Biden win is a quicker and cleaner approach in that there is no violence and they maintain the illusion of a civil and relatively smooth transition of power between the outgoing and incoming actor. It's all very calculated and nothing is left to chance. Another thought I had is it's possible Trump fell from grace, much like Nixon did with the committee. When they deemed Trump was not swinging hard enough at the plate on behalf of the CV PSYOP, enforcing ritual mask wearing as an example, they threw him under the bus. This is why Trump went from not wearing a mask and playing down CV in the early days to wearing a mask and promoting vaccines as he got closer to November 3rd. If I had to guess, word came down from the top that he better get with the program or he was out. This does not mean Trump was rogue or that he was an outlier. Anyone sitting in the White House was placed there and approved by the vetting process within the controlling hierarchy. So it's possible Trump thought he could manage the situation his way and deliver the results the committee was and is looking for. But at this particular time, and for what the controllers are trying to do within a specific time frame, because I do believe the timeline is critical for them, that they did not have the patience to deal with his strategy and ego. What the controllers want is someone that will just fall in line and do what they're doing elsewhere in the world, which is to steamroll the public with imposed restrictions, ritual mask wearing, and vaccine prep. And Biden, who has 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the reality on any given day, is the perfect puppet to move the ball downfield. In fact, Biden came out right after being declared the winner of the election and said he wants a national mask mandate. Also, as some subscribers noted, they announced Pfizer's CV vaccine on November 9th, which of course is 9/11. No shock and no coincidence there. To finish up, in my Humpty Dumpty video, I mentioned how the mainstream media associated Q and its followers with believing the world is run by Satanists and pedophiles. To be clear, I was not saying Satanism and pedophilia does not exist within the elite circles. The point I was trying to make is the mainstream media leveraged that premise, calling it crazy talk, and if Trump agreed with it, he was crazy as well. The media exploited this by asking Trump during news conferences whether he agreed with Q that the world was being run by Satanists and pedophiles. Trump's response to the question was coy. He never said yes and he never said no. Q followers interpreted Trump's non-rebuke as his being in their boat, but the media knew that by Trump not denouncing Q, that they could spin it as him supporting the premise of a group they were labeling crazy. And since the average Joe and Jane have absolutely no clue about the satanic philosophy of the elites and the pervasiveness of pedophilia, the general public, who get fed their thoughts by the idiot box in their living room, would dismiss Q and its followers as conspiracy nut jobs who represent a large portion of Trump's base of support. And it's possible the media's obvious attempt to define both Trump and Q followers as out there was intended to divert people's attention away from the Satanism and pedophilia issue within the elite circles. So we have to ask the question, were Q followers duped and set up to play a part in the demise of their hero, Donald Trump? I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. Anyway, to wrap up, I'm going to leave you with a video from the early 2000s where a computer programmer testified in Congress about how voting machines are rigged. The comment section is open, and thanks for listening, folks. Have a great day.
Mr. Curtis, would you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Clinton Eugene Curtis.
And where do you reside?
Tallahassee, Florida.
And what is your profession?
I'm a computer programmer.
Would you please speak into the microphone so the audience can hear your testimony?
I'm a computer programmer.
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes,
How do you know that to be the case?
because in October of 2000, I wrote a prototype for President Congressman Tom Feeney at the company I work for in Oviedo, Florida, that did just that.
And when you say did just that, it would rig an election?
It would flip the vote 51-49 to whoever you wanted it to go to and whichever race you wanted to win.
And would that program that you designed be something that elections officials that might be on county boards of elections could detect?
They'd never see it.
Mr. Would you answer that question once again?
They would never see it.
So how would such a program, a secret program that fixes the election, how could it be detected?
You would have to view it either in the source code, or you'd have to have a receipt and then count the hard paper against the actual vote total. Other than that, you won't see it.
All right, Mr. Curtis, if you had been asked, you or others with your professional expertise had been asked to design a protective program that would protect the Ohio elections from against such software to fix the election, could you have done so?
If we've been asked to make a program that can fix the election, sure, anybody can do it.
No, could you have designed a program or a procedure or a protocol that would have protected Ohio against this kind of rigging?
No, you have to look at the source code. You have to get probably programmers from both or all parties to look at the source code and determine if there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. I mean, it's a simple program. You're adding 1 to a person's total. It's 100 lines of code tops.
All right. Are you aware of whether there was any protective action in Ohio against this kind of vote rigging through software?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You were not asked to assist in the development of any protective system. Is that correct?
No, I was not.
In Europe, have you reviewed at all the election results in Ohio?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Given the availability of such vote rigging software and the testimony that has been given under oath of substantial statistical anomalies and gross differences between exit polling data and the actual tabulated results, do you have an opinion whether or not the Ohio election, presidential election, was hacked?
Yes, I would say it was. I mean, if you have exit polling data that is significantly off from the vote, then it's probably hacked.
And your testimony is under oath?
Yes, sir.
And the testimony you've given is true?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Who did you say you were asked to prepare?
I was asked by Tom Feeney. He's now a congressman. At that time, he was Speaker of the House of Florida, Yang Enterprises, which was the company I worked for, lobbyist, and their corporate attorney. He wore a lot of hats.
And at the time, he was the Speaker of the House of Florida. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Congressman,
You say he was the lobbyist for the voting machine company at the same time he was Speaker of the House?
I don't know what the voting machine company is. He was a lobbyist for Yang Enterprises. We had NASA contracts and
And Yang Enterprises did what? Computers?
computers.
Okay, and he was your lobbyist, your
He was
company's
the
lobbyist.
lobbyist for that company,
And
yes.
he asked you to design a code to rig an election
Yes,
while he was Speaker of the Florida House.
yes,
This was during or previous to the 2000 election?
yes, October into September.
And did he ever express why he wanted a code to rig an election?
No, I immediately assumed that they were trying to keep you guys from cheating them. So, so I wrote up the documentation of what you would look for in the source code, how you would make sure that you didn't get, taken advantage of, make sure that all voting machines had receipts, because that way you could back count the ones that looked a little funny. And I handed it
By receipts, you mean a paper trail?
Yes, paper trail. And I handed that in to Mrs. Yang and said, here's your report, here's your program. And she said, you don't understand, we need to hide the fraud in the source code.
Hide the fraud, not reveal the fraud.
Not reveal the fraud because it's needed to control the vote in South Florida, was what she said.
That's what she said.
That's
To your knowledge, was this used?
I have no idea. I was ready to leave, so I retired and left the company.
Your testimony a moment ago, I think you said just before you left in answer to Congresswoman Tubbs Jones' question, that, would you just repeat what you said in terms of the exit polls?
Oh, the exit polls should not be significantly different than the vote.
And if they were, you would conclude what?
I would conclude someone's playing with a vote.
Not with the exit polls?
That's possible too.
Okay, I was going to ask why
something is definitely skewed.
something is skewed in one or the other or both.
Right. To select which one, you'd have to see where the problem is.
Let me ask you one further question. Assuming for the moment that such software, that's what you call it, such software to rig a vote was used in one or more machines in Ohio or in Florida, could you today detect that if you looked at the source code?
If you could get the machines and they have not been patched yet, I mean, once they get in and touch them, anything can happen. You can also set timers to do that, but then you see the timers. Then you'd have to take those machines, decompile them, which I couldn't do, but possibly a Microsoft, an MIT, something could do. You might be able to see it.
You might.
Not necessarily. Depends on how good they are at destroying what they had.
Destroying what they had by tampering with the machine afterwards, or by programming a destroy instruction in the first place?
Right, because since you didn't...
Both, either or both?
Either or both. You didn't actually see what's in there, so you don't know if the code is running in a single executable or running in various modules. If it's running in modules, you can make the code actually eat itself.
Let me ask you one further question. I've been told that people who assume that lots of the election results, or that a large fraction of the election result in any state may have been affected by deliberate fraud in the computer, are paranoid, because in order to do that, you'd have to have access to thousands of machines, and that would be readily detectable. To what extent is that true?
It depends on the technology you use. If you did a central tabulation machine that fed in, all you'd have to do is set a flag. You set a flag, the central tabulation machine would then flip your vote.
So so one person putting in bad code in a central tabulation machine could affect thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of votes.
Right, and you could activate either automatically, or you could make it so that there's code existing on like an electronic machine that feeds it, where you would punch it in, it would set the flag, the server would see the flag, and then...
And if you had a recount, and there were no paper trail, would that be, assuming that had happened, would that be revealable by seeing a discrepancy between what the central tabulator showed and what the individual machines, which had not been tampered with, showed?
Not if I wrote it.
Why not? In other words,
I would make it match.
You could work back from the tabulator to the individual machines, so that the tabulator would tell the machines to switch their results?
Yes, it talks both ways. You can flip it to whatever you need.
And they actually do talk to each other, the
Yes.
machines
As long
and
as
the
it's
tabulator.
hooked up, as long as it's networked together, they can talk to each other.
So in other words, there's absolutely no assurance whatsoever on anything with regard to these machines.
Absolutely none, unless you look at the source code and make sure it's safe before it goes in.
Thank you very much.
Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones.
This will only take a moment if you would come back to the,
I'm new at this.
as you know, there has been a lot of discussion about, I think it was Diebold Company, their relationship to the president and the administration, and supposedly comments about helping to ensure that the president was reelected. In your world, in your environment, have you heard any of this kind of discussion? Do you know people for Diebold? Do you have any sense of any actions that may have been taken?
I don't know anything about that at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, I suspect people will attack you in terms of your credibility. Could you restate once again your credentials?
I'm a programmer. I worked for NASA, worked for ExxonMobil, worked for Florida Department of Transportation, and other elements of my story, because this company, well, let's get into it. Why not? This company also, they have NASA contracts. and they were basically downloading tons of information, I mean gigabytes worth, and handing them off to this little Chinese guy named Henry Nee. And it didn't seem right, and he was hacking things, and I wrote a program for DOT that allowed contractors to send their information into DOT, and he was kind of the quality assurance guy for software. He put a wiretapping module in the program that went out to the contractors so that it actually sent everything they sent back to Yang. So I reported all this, and just last March, I think, he was arrested for attempting to send anti-tank missile chips to the capital of Communist China. So, if that's correct, this is such a small thing. Of course, I think he only got a $100 fine. And no time.